Bear adopted a German Shepherd puppy. What happened next left everyone in tears. In the San Pedro Valley, glowing under the golden dust of a western sunset, the Tiara Serena Sanctuary stood as a final refuge for animals wounded in both body and soul. This wasn't a zoo. It was a place for healing, where beings discarded by humans found peace again. The sanctuary sprawled across 50 acres of wild beauty. Meadows sprinkled with wildflowers, dense thickets of pine and oak, gentle, streams gurgling over smooth stones, and hills that caught the last light of day in shimmering amber. Art Hernandez, a retired veterinarian with salt and pepper hair and hands toughened by decades of care, had created Tiara Serena 15 years ago. He'd seen too many broken creatures discarded once they were no longer profitable. With his life savings, he built a haven where these beings could heal, or at least live the rest of their lives in dignity. Animals remember everything, Art often told the volunteers. They carry their history in their bones, in their eyes. We're not here to erase that. We're here to balance the scales with new memories. Among the sanctuary's many high residents was Bruno, a large, aging brown bear once kept in a traveling circus for 15 years. With his mottled gray-brown coat and slow, weary gait, Bruno never integrated with the other bears. He bore deep psychological scars. Chains, beatings, years of performing humiliating tricks had left him traumatized. Though rescued and safe now, he often roared into the night as if mourning something long lost. Sarah Morales, a young zoologist, who had joined the team 2 years earlier, took a special interest in Bruno. Where others saw danger, she saw grief. When Bruno destroyed his feeding station, a few staff wanted him isolated. Sarah pushed back. "He's not aggressive, he's mourning," she said. "He's been mourning for 15 years. "Mourning what?" asked Miguel, a newer caretaker. Sarah's voice softened. "Everything. His freedom, his dignity, the life he never had." The team had tried everything to ease Bruno's pain. Puzzle, feeders, scent trails, even introducing him to 2 female bears rescued from an Asian bile farm. But nothing worked. Bruno would investigate, then return to his spot beneath a massive oak tree, staring endlessly at the distant mountains. Art had built his enclosure with special care. A full acre of woodland and open space, a deep pool to cool off in summer, and a rocky ledge Art called the viewing place, positioned perfectly to catch the sunset. Every evening, Bruno climbed up and sat like a monument silhouetted against the burning sky. "What do you think he's looking for?" Sarah once asked. Art watched in silence. "Not what," he replied. "Who?" "I think captive animals spend their lives waiting for someone to truly see them." Then came the day that changed everything. One crisp autumn morning, Elias, an 8-week-old German Shepherd puppy, wandered off during a family picnic near the sanctuary. The family had stopped beside a stream, and in the chaos of unpacking, no one noticed the puppy sneak off, nose down, tail wagging, chasing a scent trail. He slipped through an old tunnel Bruno had once dug in an escape attempt but never finished. Nature had partially filled it in, but it was still just wide enough for a determined pup. No one knew the puppy had entered Bruno's enclosure. Bruno was dozing in a sunny patch when he caught the unfamiliar scent. His ears twitched, nostrils flared. This wasn't food or caretaker scent. This was new. Ancient instincts stirred. Elias, innocent and fearless, was exploring with puppy enthusiasm, oblivious to the fact that a massive bear had just stood up less than 50 yards away. When he finally noticed Bruno, he barked playfully and bounded forward, eager to meet a new friend. Bruno reacted on instinct. He reared up to his full 8-foot height and let out a thunderous roar that echoed through the sanctuary. When staff arrived minutes later, Elias was trembling under a rock while Bruno paced in full panic, tearing up logs and growling. But as Bruno drew near the puppy, something changed. He stopped. His eyes locked on Elias, who didn't resist or run, just watched him, tail curled tight. A memory rose of a small dog in the circus, beaten to death trying to protect Bruno. The bear whimpered, lowered himself to the ground, and lay beside Elias, as if apologizing to a ghost. Sarah was the first to reach the observation deck, alerted by the uncharacteristic commotion. What she saw stunned her. Bruno, the most broken animal in their care, gently nudging a tiny puppy with his massive snout. His paw alone could crush the pup, but his movements were cautious, delicate. "Don't move," Art whispered beside her. "No sudden sounds. We need to get the puppy out," another staff member said. "No," Art cut in. "Look at his body language. He's not threatening him." Bruno had placed himself between Elias and the world. His body, massive and scarred, was now a shield. His every movement was deliberate, protective. "What do we do?" Sarah whispered. Art's eyes never left the scene. "We wait. We observe. We learn." From that moment, something unexpected blossomed. Bruno didn't know how to play, but he tried, pawing branches, dragging straw, digging up anthills, bringing Elias honeycombs despite getting stung. Elias responded with pure joy. He pounced, rolled, nestled into Bruno's thick fur at night. Bruno, in return, learned to respond. Soft grunts, gentle taps, soothing huffs when Elias twitched in dreams. The team debated long about the next steps. They'd found Elias's owners, a family from Sacramento devastated by his disappearance. Art personally called them. "Your puppy is safe, but something incredible has happened." He invited them to the sanctuary. From a quiet viewing deck, they watched their tiny puppy tumble about with a giant bear. Bruno, the reclusive predator, now acted as a guardian. "He's been with us for 7 years, Art told them. "He's never bonded with another creature, until Elias." The parents exchanged glances, the children wide-eyed. "You want to keep him," the mother said softly. Art nodded. "It's a huge ask, but something healing is happening for both of them. We'll compensate you, help you find another puppy." "No," the father said, watching Bruno roll a pine cone toward Elias, who pounced with glee. "Some things are meant to be." And so Elias became a resident of Tiara Serena. A cozy doghouse was built in Bruno's enclosure. Proper food was delivered. A specialized vet schedule set. Sarah took on their care, spending hours each day observing, documenting, connecting. What began as a professional interest soon became something deeper. She brought her lunches to the observation deck, stayed past her shifts, watched the pair build their own language, gestures, sounds, trust. "They're teaching each other how to be," she told Art one night, as Bruno built a grass bed while Elias watched, tail wagging in approval. "Elias never learned to fear. Bruno is learning how to trust." The sanctuary changed. Volunteers requested shifts near the enclosure. Donations surged. A photographer's images of the odd pair went viral, shining light on the sanctuary's mission. But what mattered most was Bruno. The roaring at night stopped. The outbursts vanished. The heaviness in his movements lifted. And in its place bloomed something long dormant: hope. In the golden dusk of San Pedro Valley, the Tiara Serena Sanctuary stretched across 50 acres of wild meadows, pine groves, and murmuring streams. This was no zoo, but a haven, a final refuge, for animals wounded not just in body but in spirit. Here, broken creatures cast aside by the world found safety, and sometimes a second chance. Art Hernandez, a retired veterinarian with weathered hands and a silver-streaked beard, founded the sanctuary 15 years ago after decades of witnessing animals discarded like tools once they outlived their usefulness. He poured his savings into Tiara Serena, determined to offer them dignity, healing, and peace. "Animals remember everything," Art often told the volunteers. "Our job isn't to erase those memories, but to help create new ones." Bruno, a massive brown bear with matted fur and haunted eyes, was the sanctuary's most solitary resident. He'd spent 15 years in a traveling circus, beaten, shackled, forced to perform. Even after his rescue, he remained apart from the other bears. Each night he roared not in anger but in mourning, for freedom lost, for a life unlived. Sarah Morales, a young zoologist, had taken a special interest in Bruno. Where others saw danger, she saw grief. "He's not aggressive," she insisted. When some suggested isolating him after he destroyed a feeding station, "He's mourning." They had tried everything to bring him comfort: enrichment games, scent trails, even gentle socialization with other bears. But nothing worked. Bruno always returned to the same spot beneath a great oak tree, staring silently at the mountains. His enclosure was vast and carefully built: open woods, deep pools, and a rocky ledge facing west. Each evening Bruno would climb that rock and sit motionless as the sun fell, like a shadowed monument to everything he had endured. "What's he looking for?" Sarah asked Art one evening. Art replied softly, "Not what, who." Then one autumn morning, everything changed. Elias, an 8-week-old German Shepherd puppy, accidentally wandered away from his family during a hike near the sanctuary. Chasing a wild scent, he squeezed through an old, half-collapsed tunnel Bruno had once dug during an escape attempt. No one noticed. No alarms sounded. Bruno, asleep in the sun, stirred at the unfamiliar scent. It wasn't food. It wasn't human. It was something young, alive. He rose slowly, instincts prickling. Elias, tail wagging, bounded joyfully into the bear's territory, unaware of the danger. When he finally spotted the towering bear, he barked happily and ran toward him, expecting a playmate. Bruno reared up, roaring, a sound that shook the whole sanctuary. Elias dove under a rock, trembling. But as Bruno approached, something changed. A memory surfaced. A small dog from the circus, beaten trying to protect him. Bruno hesitated, then whimpered, then lowered himself beside Elias, gently nudging him with his enormous muzzle. Sarah reached the observation deck moments later. What she saw stunned her. The sanctuary's most damaged animal protecting the smallest and most vulnerable. "Don't move," Art whispered beside her. "He's not threatening him, he's guarding him." And from that moment, Bruno and Elias became inseparable. Bruno, who didn't know how to play, began trying, clawing at branches, offering honeycombs, even teaching Elias how to forage and dig. Elias responded with innocent joy, climbing onto Bruno's back, curling against him at night, chasing butterflies as the bear watched silently. Sarah spent hours observing them. She wrote everything down. "They're teaching each other," she told Art. "Elias is learning to feel safe, and Bruno, he's learning to feel again." News of their unlikely friendship spread. Visitors came, donations increased. But what truly mattered was Bruno's transformation. His roaring stopped, the violence ceased. His movements began to lighten. He splashed in the pool on hot days, batted at butterflies when Elias chased them. And one day, Sarah watched through tears as Bruno delicately offered Elias a freshly caught fish, waiting patiently while the pup sniffed it and politely declined. "They're both healing," Art said softly. As months passed, Elias grew leaner, more alert, still playful but now deeply attuned to Bruno's moods. One spring day, they ventured to a rocky part of the enclosure. Bruno was teaching him about edible berries and clean water when Elias disturbed a wasp nest. Stung and terrified, the dog bolted toward a cliff. Bruno moved like lightning, despite age and injuries. He grabbed Elias gently by the scruff and dragged him back from the edge just in time. Sarah watched in awe. Bruno, once a victim, now a protector. That evening they lay together on the viewing rock, the sky ablaze with color. Bruno, for once, wasn't watching the horizon. He was here, now, with Elias. As summer faded into autumn, Elias matured into a smart, strong dog. He could read Bruno's emotions like a book, anticipating moods, offering comfort before anyone else noticed something wrong. Sarah noticed subtle changes in Bruno: stiffness, limping, and a shadow of pain in his eyes. A full health assessment revealed the truth: bone cancer, advanced and aggressive. Nothing could be done except pain management. Art, heart-heavy, shared the news with Sarah. And then he added something else. "Elias has a gift," he said. "He could help others. There's a retirement home looking for a therapy dog, Golden Haven, Elias knows how to comfort, how to simply be there because of Bruno. Sarah didn't want to separate them, but she knew the truth. Elias could honor Bruno's gift by continuing it. They began preparing him, small trips, gentle introductions. Elias was confused at first, but he adapted. He always came back, pressing himself into Bruno's side. Bruno would sniff him thoroughly, as if reading stories written in new scents. But Bruno was fading. He ate less, slept more. Yet he always had energy for Elias. On the day Elias left for good, the sanctuary was quiet. Bruno didn't panic, didn't rage. He walked up, licked Elias on the forehead once, then turned back to his straw nest. That night, he didn't roar. And when Sarah brought Elias back the next morning to visit, Bruno was gone, curled peacefully in his nest, as if simply asleep. Elias sat beside him, resting his head on Bruno's paw, not moving. The sanctuary buried Bruno beneath the oak tree he had once loved, and above it they placed a stone carved with these words: "He was caged in life, but free in love." And Elias, he lives on, not just as a therapy dog, but as a living testament to how love can break chains stronger than iron. Bruno passed quietly, lying as if asleep, his great body turned toward the old tunnel where Elias had first emerged. Sarah found him at dawn, bathed in soft light. She had come early, intending to check on Bruno before bringing Elias for his visit. But the moment she saw him, still, peaceful, she knew. There was a calmness in his expression that had never been there in life. It was as if, in those final moments, he had finally released the weight of his suffering. She sat beside him for a long time, tears falling silently, not just for Bruno, but for the years of torment he had endured before finding love, for the brief joy he had finally known, and for all the creatures like him who never found their way to places like Tiara Serena. When she had composed herself, Sarah called Art. Together they agreed Elias should have the chance to say goodbye. It would be painful, yes, but Elias deserved truth, not a mystery. Sarah drove to Golden Haven. With a heavy heart, Elias greeted her with his usual enthusiasm, unaware that everything had changed. As they drove back toward the sanctuary, Sarah kept looking at him in the rearview mirror, wondering how to prepare him. But animals possess their own wisdom, their own language for grief and love. As they neared Bruno's enclosure, Elias grew, still his body tense, nose sniffing the air. By the time Sarah opened the gate, he moved with careful deliberation, as though he already understood. He didn't bark or whine. He simply pressed his head into Bruno's unmoving form and lay there, beside him all afternoon, performing a quiet farewell. That night, Elias let out a single, soul-deep howl, and never again. The sanctuary team buried Bruno beneath the wide stone outcrop where he had spent many evenings watching the sunset. They laid honeycombs, fresh berries, and pine boughs in his grave, tokens of the peaceful life he'd come to cherish. Sarah read a poem she'd written about second chances and unexpected friendships. Her voice trembled as she spoke, breaking more than once. Elias sat beside her throughout, perfectly still. When the final shovel of earth was placed, he approached. The grave sniffed it gently and lay down, his head resting on his paws. He stayed until darkness fell. Only then did Sarah attach his leash and quietly lead him away. Golden Haven welcomed Elias with open arms. Many of the residents had followed the story of the bear and the dog in the news. His arrival felt like an honor. A small ceremony was held in the community room where the director spoke of Elias's extraordinary journey. Sarah presented Elias with a red wool scarf, adorned with a small bear-shaped pin woven from strands of Bruno's fur. He wore it daily, and he became the soul of Golden Haven. Elias curled beside elders who no longer remembered their own names. He lay beside terminal cancer patients and comforted veterans battling the shadows of old wars. They called him the Bear's Echo. Martha Simmons, 93, hadn't spoken since a stroke 3 years earlier. During Elias's first tour of the facility, he settled beside her wheelchair, resting his head on her lap. Her gnarled hand moved, stroking his fur. It was her first voluntary motion in months, Over the following weeks, Elias spent long hours with her. He always knew how long to stay, when to be still, when to nudge gently for attention. One afternoon, as he performed a trick Sarah had taught him, retrieving a book from a low shelf, Martha made a sound, not quite a word, but deliberate and unmistakably human. The staff was stunned. He gives them something to respond to. Dr. Reynolds, the head physician, told Sarah. He doesn't demand recognition or words like we do. He just stays, and that makes it safe for them to come back to life. Stories like Martha's multiplied. Leonard, a Vietnam veteran who hadn't joined a group activity in years, began tending the garden again, only when Elias was nearby. Sophia, in late-stage Alzheimer's, remembered her childhood dog's name after Elias spent a morning lying quietly at her feet. Small miracles bloomed in his presence. Sarah continued her research. What had started as a study on cross-species bonding evolved into something deeper, a meditation on how trauma and healing ripple across lives. She wrote in her journal, Bruno saved him twice, first from the cliff, then by showing him how to witness suffering without fear, how to sit with pain, not to fix it, but to honor it, how to stay. Every Sunday, Elias returned to Tiara Serena. He would walk up to the same rock where Bruno had once sat watching sunsets. Though the bear was gone, his presence lingered in the hush of the valley, in the paw prints still faintly visible in the dust. The wind seemed to carry echoes of a gentle roar that had once changed two lives. These Sunday pilgrimages became sacred. Rain, heat, or snow, Elias never missed one. The staff watched from afar as he made his way up the hill, his red scarf vivid against his now fully grown coat. The little bear pin glinted in the sun. He always sat in silence. Sometimes he would bring small offerings, a flower from the nursing home garden, a fallen feather, once even a child's drawing of a dog and a bear, and gently place them on Bruno's grave before settling into his usual position. I think he's telling Bruno about his week, Sarah whispered to Art one Sunday as they watched. About everyone he's helping. Art, older now, his face more lined, nodded slowly. That's the thing about love, he said. It doesn't end. It just changes form. The story of Bruno and Elias continued to spread. People came from far away to visit Tiara Serena on Sundays, not just to see the sanctuary, but to witness Elias, the dog raised by a bear, the one who carried a legacy of wild love into human hearts. But for those who had seen it unfold firsthand, the most powerful part of the story wasn't how improbable it was how simple it was. Two wounded beings had found each other across the vastest of divides, species, scars, pasts, and had given each other exactly what they needed. Bruno gave Elias safety and wisdom. Elias gave Bruno a reason to live, fully, if only for a brief time. Now, in the quiet of Golden Haven, in the soft press of Elias's head against a trembling hand, in the calm gaze that asked nothing and gave everything, Bruno's gift continued, touching lives he never knew, but perhaps, somehow, could still feel.